friends, and welcome to the Happy Hour with Jamie Ivey podcast. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm so excited that you're here. Each week, I invite a girlfriend to join me on the show, and we chat about the big things in life, the little things in life, and everything in between. You're listening to episode number 60, and today's guest is Jillian Lauren. Jillian is a writer and a mom and a wife. She's the author of 3 books, and 2 of them we're going to actually talk a lot about today in this episode. Today, Jillian and I chat about life while being married to musicians. We talk about some of her awesome books, and we talk about her former life as a woman working in a harem. Today's show is sponsored by Noonday Collection. If you're not familiar with Noonday, you should be. Noonday is a business that uses fashion to create opportunities across the globe. They work with artisans in Uganda, India, Vietnam, and beyond to design and create the most beautiful handmade jewelry. I want to tell you the opportunity to earn an income and make an impact as a Noonday ambassador. Noonday ambassadors are stylists, storytellers, and social entrepreneurs who make an impact in their communities and around the world. You can style your friends and create meaningful opportunity for artisans around the globe. My personal Noonday ambassador is Krista, and she is just the best. I host a trunk show with her every season, and I love having her style me and my friends and tell me the stories behind each collection that they come out with. Together, we're empowering families around the world. Noonday has an exclusive offer for Happy Hour listeners who sign up to become a Noonday ambassador. Visit thehappyhour.noondaycollection.com for all of the details. Guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Jillian. Crazy, but we're here.
We're here. Here we are.
Thanks for coming on the Happy Hour again, might I say.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very enthused to be talking to you.
Again, and let me explain to everybody that you were in Austin. When were you here? What? I don't even know what month that was.
Like maybe a month ago.
Okay. So you were here in Austin, which was amazing because I'm like, hey, let's do an interview together. And we did a whole interview, and then my computer completely lost it. I mean,
so tragic.
It was awful.
It happens. It does happen.
Oh, I told Aaron, I was like, it was an interview I'd been looking forward to for so long because I just adore your book that just came out, and I just ate it up, and I was so excited to talk to you and meet you. Like, we've been online friends for years, and I get to meet you in person, we get to chat, and then it's there. And you were so gracious when you emailed me back and was like, no problem. I was like, oh, thank you.
Well, it just happens. It totally happens. It's happened to me. Not with like podcast interviews, but with interviews I've done for research purposes or for journalism, or that you get home and there's just nothing.
It's the worst.
It stopped
so
recording
awful.
at some point. It's just awful, and I'm so paranoid about it now that I'm always like constantly checking the whatever device it is.
Yes.
I can't imagine that's very relaxing for my interview subject. I'm like, just wait a second, let me just check, make sure this is
right. Exactly. So
anyway,
thank you.
But I'm glad because now I get to have another conversation.
A whole nother talk. It's so fun.
I know, it's so fun. It's really a treat. And I mean, when you have kids, it's like you don't get to talk to everyone you want to talk to.
Yeah. It's crazy. That's how life works.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell the story again because I think it's so funny that everyone needs to hear it. And I told you this when we first chatted, that when you and I first met, I mean, it was before your son came home, and he's been home like 7 years. I mean, right? Has he been home 6 years?
Yeah, 6.5.
Okay, so I probably had my kids home maybe. I don't remember how we met. We met online.
Yeah.
And
maybe through Kristen Howerton
I don't even know. So
yeah.
I just remember that I think I had written a blog about liking memoirs, and you left me a comment and said, I have this memoir out called Some Girls, and maybe you'll like it. And you sent me a copy, and I just fell in love with it. And you told me in there that your husband was a musician, all this kind of stuff. And so I don't think anything of it. My husband's a musician, and the funny thing is, I went and told Aaron, I was like, I met this new friend online. She's sending me her book. Her husband's in a band. He's like, oh, what's the name of the band? And I said, he's in something called like the Weezers or something. And Aaron just like could not even believe it because he's embarrassed that I was like calling your husband's band the Weezers. Because everyone clearly, except for me, knew Weezer, except for me.
Yeah.
I'm so not musical.
We sort of call it that between us, actually.
That's good.
Going on with the Weezers
so
today.
I was like totally in the know then.
You were. You just didn't know, but you were.
Exactly.
It's your instinct for.
Aaron took me. Do you know who Damian Rice is?
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be so let down by this as well.
Oh no.
Some friends bought some tickets and invited us to go with them, and this was months ago. I mean, they got the tickets months ago, and they told me, they're like, "Do you want to come see Damian Rice?" And Aaron like nearly loses his mind, and they're like, "Jamie, do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yo, I've never heard of that person before ever," and they were all just appalled. It was crazy. In fact, during the concert, Aaron's like, "I don't even know why you're here."
Did you like it?
I did, but it was just funny because I'm like, everyone there, you can tell.
Are just worshipful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was my first experience,
Right.
but it was beautiful.
Yeah. He's great. He's really talented. But yeah, people are so you can always feel a little bit on the outside, I think, if you're at one of those performers who has a very cultish following, and you're just sort of like, oh, I sort of recognize that one song. Maybe I heard that one.
Yeah. But it was fun. What's the last concert you went to? There's a random question.
Oh, well, that's you're what was it? I went to Fleetwood Mac.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to Fleetwood Mac with my husband. Did not go. I went with friends, and it was so much fun. It was like a real old school concert experience for me, because I'm very used to now going places with Scott, and usually we're going somewhere because he knows the people, or he's just in that world. So, I don't usually just like go to a stadium concert and sit in the way high seats or anything.
You like on the side with the people.
Usually.
Right.
And anyway, so that's exactly what we did. And we went, and we were just dancing like crazy dorks and having the best time. And it was such a great show. And they played for hours, and it was such a fun night.
Fun. Now you see what like the other concert goers, what their experience is, because you're like on the side, and you get to see the people loving it.
Yeah, it's true. I love being married to a musician, and that is one of the reasons, because it's like such a special experience to be in that kind of in-between place, because I'm not on the stage and I'm not really in the audience. Like, I don't really belong to either world, so I can kind of move freely between both of them, and I get to see these faces so full of joy and light and dancing and so excited and screaming in front of my husband. And it's just great. And then I also get to be standing there, and usually Taraku's there. Usually I'm with my son. He's been seeing Weezer shows since he was 18 months old. And it's just really special. I love it.
So you just mentioned, and I'm just curious about this. I mean, there are women out there screaming at your husband.
Yeah.
Is that ever weird? Has that ever been weird to you? Because when you met and married Scott, he was like already living this life, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was living this life way more than he is now, I'll tell you.
Like the Rockstar life, yeah.
I think he did an interview the other day, and I was there, and it was really funny because he was like, yeah, it was the thing. It was the girls and the touring, and and he's like, it was terrible. That was terrible.
I hated that life. Now he's like devoted husband and dad, and
And now it's like, I mean, they're now not so much, but like when Taraku was younger and a little more challenging, and I had been, chasing him around all day, and Scott would get off stage, and I would just basically like hurl the baby at him. Be like, take this, baby. He's like, sweat dripping off of him. Okay.
It's like, what happened to my rock star life?
Yeah, what happened here?
But in reality, how is that with girls?
Is it like? Yeah, well, first of all, the Weezer fans are so polite and nice. It's like a really great group of fans. It's not, I mean, no offense to the fans of Megadeth or anything, but it's not like my husband plays in Megadeth or something. So I think that might be we'd be having a different conversation at that point about the girls.
Yeah.
But, there certainly is all that kind of attention. But mostly, I know those girls now, like the ones who really show up again and again, the super fans, the people who show up in every city. Like, I know them online. They'll send me a message on Facebook saying, like, what does Scott want for his birthday? And I'm like, why don't you just make him some gluten-free brownies?
Yeah, exactly. Bring him to the show.
And they're so polite, and they're really actually very supportive of our family, and like they read my blog, and they're
that's
very
great.
sweet, and I trust my husband. I mean, if you're going to be married to a musician, you can't be one of those super jealous people who are like obsessing about where your husband is all the time, and what are they doing, and what's that picture on Facebook?
Right.
Who's his arm around? It's like he takes pictures with his arm around people all night long. That's like what he does. If a fan wants to take a picture of him, okay, a picture. So it's like you just have. I trust my husband. I have so much faith in him, in our marriage and our partnership, and that doesn't mean that I don't think that he enjoys the attention from all these women. I think he does, and I think he should. I don't think that it necessarily translates into, and then he's gonna go and have sex with these people.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
It doesn't equal that for y'all.
Those two things are different, and he gets to have that.
Yeah. So my husband's in a band. It's a little different than Weezer, but we have all of us wives are kind of like this little team. Like we're like our own little thing. Like because we all support our men the same, and like everything they walk through, we walk through. Do y'all have that? Is there something with
We do.
Weezer Wives? Can I call you that? Weezer Wives?
Yeah, the wives, and also the band's assistant, who is just the most wonderful woman who's been with them forever. Like I sort of include her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like the Weezer Wives threw me my baby shower when Tarika was coming home. Like we've been through so much together. I've been with them. I mean, I've been with Scott for 12 years. So we've traveled the world together. We've been through everyone having their babies, and actually one of the wives, who was my closest friend, bless her, died of breast cancer, so we
did not know that. Y'all have walked
very
through a lot
young
together.
Very young with 2 young kids, and it was just a devastating thing for me and for all of us. And so we've been through a lot together, and we're definitely very supportive. I mean, we it's like a family. We go through phases of sometimes where you're hanging out and being social together, and sometimes we're not so much. It's not like we're getting together when we're not on tour or something. It's so nice now with the kids stuff. Like we have a lot of young kids in the band now, and they just have the greatest time together.
That is so fun.
It's really adorable. They're all like dancing together backstage, and it's really cute.
That's really the best. So, you and Scott, y'all been together for 12 years. Your son is 7. Is that right? Okay. And so the first book that I read of yours was Some Girls, and that's the first book that you wrote.
Right.
And it's a memoir, which is my absolute most favorite book ever to read.
Me too.
Do you love reading
memoirs? I
memoirs?
love memoirs. Yeah. I love novels too, but I really love memoirs.
I'm like, what is it about? What is it that is so intriguing? I don't think it's like getting in someone's life. Like, I don't want to know their business, but I think it is like walking through someone's shoes and something. And not that I walk through your shoes necessarily in your memoirs, but it's like you get to feel what they're feeling.
Yes, and I also think that it's a very empowering experience of connection when you walk with somebody through an experience in a memoir, and you see how you can take experiences that are often very tragic or very painful or very confusing or chaotic and create a meaningful narrative out of them.
Yeah.
And that there's usually if a memoir is being written, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's something.
Hopefully, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, please don't bum me out here.
Don't leave me here. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I suppose you could write a memoir without a happy ending, but
yeah, we need to go somewhere with it.
yeah.
Yeah. Now you actually teach. I want to talk about your books for sure because I love them
Uh-huh.
both so much. But you teach writing, don't you?
I do, yeah. Like I run retreats sometimes for women, which that's my favorite.
Oh, that
So
would be
amazing.
fun.
We actually have one coming up in February in Ojai, and it's not on my website yet, but it will be soon. So if people are
What happens
interested
at the
in doing a
retreat?
Um, we're going to this resort in Ojai for a few nights, and me and two writer friends of mine, Claire Bidwell Smith and Jenny Felden, also amazing writers, are going to lead a group of women, and we'll lead master classes, and we'll lead walks and meals, and just rap sessions and writing exercises.
Oh, that
And
sounds amazing.
yeah, it's going to be amazing. And so I love doing that. And then I also I teach at different master's programs from time to time. So I don't have a full-time teaching gig, but I do teach.
Okay, well that's amazing, and your writing is beautiful. And like I said, I was first exposed to you from Some Girls, and this is a book that after I read it, I told everyone you have to read this story. I mean, it's a story like if you even told me your story right here, I'd be like, I don't think I believe it. Like,
Yeah.
this can't be true, And basically, give them just like a summary of what this. It's not a story; it's your story. What it's about.
Yeah, I mean the thing with my first memoir, Some Girls, was I had to write it as a memoir. I couldn't fictionalize the story because it would have been far too absurd.
Right.
You know,
They would be like,
as a work
this
of
can't
fiction,
happen.
people would be
Right.
like, this is just so off base. Basically, so when I was a wild child. I was really wild as a teenager. I left home very early and moved to New York. I was trying to be an actress, and I got involved in all kinds of unsavory things. I was an exotic dancer for a while, and then I got this invitation to go and attend these parties every night in a country called Brunei, which is on the island of Borneo. And I was invited by the Prince of Brunei to go and be his personal guest and go to these parties. So because I was 18, and also because I had very poor boundaries, I went.
You thought this would be a great idea.
I thought that sounds terrific.
Did anyone tell you, I don't think you should do this?
Well, I didn't tell many
Okay.
about what I was doing. But yeah, sure, of course. I remember my closest friend and my roommate at the time just being like, you are gonna wind up in a brothel in Thailand on a bare mattress, addicted to heroin or something. Like, what are you thinking? But I did just trust the woman who hired me, which I would not recommend any of the decisions that I made to anyone, but it did happen to turn out okay for me.
Yeah.
Like, I trusted her. I trusted that she was telling me the truth, and in fact, she was.
Yeah.
And she was a good and honorable person, and I was treated very well. I was never a prisoner there. But yeah, so the subtitle of the book is My Life in a Harem, because essentially, when I showed up, that's what it was. It was this group of women who were living, behind palace walls, who were there just to kind of go to these parties and sing and dance and entertain the prince every night and his entourage. And so I wound up falling in love with the prince. See previous comment about no boundaries.
Right.
I was like, yeah, it's just like this slight hitch of his 30 other girlfriends. But, it's really amazing how adaptable we are. Like, what kind of circumstances can start to seem normal if that's what your everyday looks like. So, and I wound up there for about a year and a half, back and forth with him, and it was very glamorous, and I mean, they were the richest people in the world at the time. I
Crazy.
saw the craziest, most decadent things. It was also very demoralizing, and I got really depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I realized that I was not living authentically to the person I am.
Yeah.
I'm not some sequestered
Mm-hmm.
trophy mistress. I wanted to be an artist, and I wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to be a writer, and none of those things were on the horizon in Brunei. So I wound up leaving, and when I finally did, it really made a lot of sense, and I wound up going back to school.
Yeah.
And
Do you
um,
remember a moment when you were there when you thought, I want to be an actress, I want to be a writer, what am I doing? This is not who I am.
yeah, I do, and it took a long time because I'm a real slow learner. I'm a slow learner with a high tolerance for pain and
Yeah.
suffering.
Uh-huh.
Um, but what really helped me was I started writing. I started journaling very diligently there, and I started because we had days
You
full of
had a lot of
nothing.
time on your
We had a
hands.
lot of time. We had to show up at the parties at 10 o'clock at night, and other than that, we were pretty much just like
Yeah. Do
doing our nails
yeah.
and figuring out ways to be mean to each other and not eat.
Wow.
I mean, it was just
Mm-hmm.
like,
It sounds like an episode of The Bachelor, but like set here.
yeah, it
Right.
was the original Bachelor. It was
Yes.
the Bachelor before the Bachelor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I started journaling very diligently, and I started journaling in a different way than I ever had before, because my journals before that had been more like, oh, I really think that Ryan is cute,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to lose 10 pounds,
Right.
and I don't think Trisha likes me, and I feel sad or whatever.
Yeah.
you know and I started to, because of how much time I had, and because I needed a way to process what was going on around me. Um, Started instead to listen to what people were saying, and to try and like start to write down what people were saying, how people were speaking, what things looked like, what they smelled like details, and
Mm-hmm.
like more detailed exploration both of the world outside of me and the world inside of me. And of course, I didn't do this with any intention at all of ever writing a book about this. I never thought I would. I thought that would be an incredibly dangerous thing to do, and maybe it was, although I have not had any repercussions thus far. But
Yeah.
um, and I mean that just wasn't even a consideration. It was more about process, and that process. I mean, obviously, those notes were immensely helpful to me when I went back to write the book 18 years later, because I didn't
Yeah.
remember,
18
I had
years.
descriptions of what the prince was wearing in that journal, and and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, now I remember. And then the
Right.
memories would start flowing. Um, so it was, a lot of, I mean, I really wrote to that realization of like, I can't live like this. I'm so unhappy. Like, there isn't enough money in the world.
Mm.
Um, that was a well, by that time I was almost 20. I mean, that was my 20-year-old perspective on it. Of course, I had never like worked a real job at that point.
Right.
I'm just like, there isn't enough money in the world. I'm so
Oh, that's your realization as a 20-year-old. That's great.
Yeah, I know. And thank God. And that was good. And good thing I didn't know
Yeah.
what that money was, or what
Mm-hmm.
it meant, or what and just, went, spent it like an idiot,
Right.
and then was like, oh, wait a second. Now I'm working for $11 an hour.
What's this? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
man, when I read that book, I mean, I literally was reading it with my jaw down. Like this is a true story. Like this is
Yeah,
crazy, and like this is your story. You walked this, however
I
many years
did.
ago. But I told you this before, and I a girlfriend of mine has the book. Actually, you know what, Jillian? After we talked for the first time, and I lost that interview, I had loaned out your book, Some Girls Just Forever, and couldn't find it anywhere, and so I went and bought another one And then I gave it to my girlfriend, and she hasn't ever given it back to me again. So I'm like, I'm gonna quit giving out books.
Do you want me to send you one? I'll send you a new one.
I'm good. I actually think I actually bought one that night when I saw you at Book People. But whatever. My whole point in saying that is that I remember vividly, and I don't have many, like, books move me emotionally for sure. But then I move on to the next book. I mean, they do move me. But I remember reading your book. I was in the bathtub because I remember this, and I remember just weeping, and I can't remember what stage it was in the book, but you were expressing such sadness in this part that I literally was like, I was so sad with you, and that has like stuck with me. That when a writer can bring you into their story, and you feel so sad for them, I mean, such a great writer. So wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I cried too. I cried when I was writing that stuff for sure. It was tough to revisit. And I did it, I really tried to just throw myself into it 100% because I figured, if I'm not willing to cry over this stuff, why would I?
Who else will? Right.
Why would I expect anyone else to?
Yeah,
so, I really tried to delve into the emotional truth of that time in my life because, my whole intention in writing that book was to show the gray area and show the humanity in the choices we make, even in the really bad choices we make. I mean, especially in the really bad choices we make. Show the humanity in that.
Yeah.
And you know what? In the process, it helped me see it in myself.
Right.
Too.
You get there on your own.
That's the real gift of writing memoir, I think, is that you get a certain amount of compassion for yourself. Once you're looking at yourself as a character, you're like, oh, hey, I hadn't had a conversation with that character, with that 18-year-old me in a long time when I went back and wrote that book because I just shut the door on her.
Was it hard? Did you feel as though you were writing about a character and not really about yourself?
Much more so with the first book than with this most recent memoir, Everything You Ever Wanted, my new memoir, because this most recent memoir was about such recent events.
Right.
But that memoir was literally about events that happened 18 years before I wrote it. So it did feel like writing about a character.
Yeah.
And it always feels like writing about a character in some ways, and it always should, I think, because you need to have a certain amount of distance from something.
Okay, yeah.
Otherwise, I forget that everyone else hasn't seen every single thing I've seen, so you make too many assumptions.
That's true, because then you assume they know stuff and then you don't explain it.
Yeah, what it's like to arrive at the airport in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, or what it's like to stand backstage at a Weezer concert.
Right.
To me, those things, I know what they're like. I could use shorthand to describe them, but my job as a writer is to really bring the reader into that experience. So I think it takes a little bit of distance.
Yeah. And so this new book that you just wrote, Everything You Ever Wanted, your memoir about your bringing your family together and adopting your son, and it is so beautifully written. And I told someone after I first read it, I said, it's almost as if sometimes I was reading words that were straight out of my head, the ways that I felt throughout those first few years when we brought our kids home.
Wow, thank you so much. That's really the highest praise.
Just as a mom who has been through who parents kids that have been through trauma and have come from hard places, it was so refreshing to read your words because I felt like A, I'm not alone, which is good to know, right. And B, there's such hope. You take us on a full circle, not full circle, but full spectrum, from getting him home and then the challenges that you've had. But it was so beautifully written.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I felt I'm very proud of the latest book, and it's very precious to me, and I did feel like that it was my best writing. When I was writing it, I was like, this is my best writing.
It was really wonderful. Now, did you? Am I correct on this? Did you write Some Girls when you already had Terry Q home?
Oh my gosh, I wrote the first half of it. before.
Uh-huh.
And I really thought I was so busy. You know, do you
Right.
remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember thinking you were so busy?
Yep. I remember, I mean, you're busy when you have one kid because it's all you know. But now that I have four, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, two is a breeze. Like you're
No,
just,
do you remember when you thought you were so busy though when you didn't have any kids?
oh, yes.
Oh yeah, I thought it was so busy. So for 6 months I was waiting for Taraku and writing the book. And then we adopted him and I obviously took a few months off. And then I had a deadline I was looking at. So
Yeah.
then I was trying to get back into writing, and you know how it is. Like you have this addled mom brain, no sleeping,
Right.
and then I'm trying to finish the book, and have this infant who I mean I didn't know it before. I probably didn't even know it then really what was going on, but was having all these behavioral manifestations of trauma, and was having these tantrums and really wouldn't eat very much, and his sleeping was terrible. Like, he was up 6 times a night every night, screaming and vomiting, and I was like, oh,
What just happened to my life?
God,
Right.
happened.
And so
Like
then you
there.
had to write the rest of that book.
And
Oh
I
my
wrote the rest
gosh.
of the book, and I did it.
You
I
did
did it.
it.
I finished it. I remember at the very end, I didn't have anyone else. I did like attachment cocooning stuff with Taraku, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't have anyone else, even other than Scott, even hold him or feed him or nurture him for months, much less having a sitter. I mean, that just didn't happen at all. It was just like my best friend would sometimes come over and watch him while I was in the house with them.
Right.
I was
And like,
never not with him in the house, And but at the very end, when I was like struggling to get the last edits in and stuff, I remember I called my friend who lived on the corner who had like a 15-year-old pot dealer kid, and I was like, hey, can they just come over for like an hour or two? They don't really even have to do anything.
oh, you're like, I have reached the low and this has got to get done.
No, I'm like, good, just come, just like sell pot out of my backyard. Just like, I don't even care. Just like, make sure my kid doesn't hurt himself while I finish this. Like,
Oh my gosh.
God.
You're
I
like,
was so crazed and desperate. It was a crazy time.
that is
But
so crazy.
yeah, but I did it, and it was really gratifying. I mean, I still don't know how I like when it really gets to crunch time, like write and parent, it's so hard.
So
Those
hard.
two things are so hard to
Yeah.
marry for me.
Now, is Taraku in school now?
Right this minute he's at camp still because his school starts really late.
Okay.
His school starts next week, which I actually like. I think that it's good to start after Labor Day. That's just sort of how I remember things. And I don't know, everyone starts so early now. But so he's there, but we're in the middle of another adoption.
Yes. So tell us. I mean, what do you want to tell us about that?
So, well, we're adopting again. We're adopting through the foster care system here in LA County. And so we're right at the end of our certification process. When I got home from the book tour, I was like, if I don't clear the decks and do this and make this happen and throw myself into this next adoption and into being a mom, and then it's never going to happen.
Right.
So that's what I did, and miraculously, all of a sudden, everything started to move really quickly. So we're almost certified, like in the next couple days, and I mean, it's like we're already talking to them about possibilities. So it's really exciting.
So are you doing older child, younger, anything? What are you doing here?
Between 3 and 5.
Okay.
About and boy, African American boy. Taraku says he wants a little brown brother.
Nice.
Taraku likes to say that in really awkward public situations, actually.
That makes it even better.
Which is pretty awesome. There's a funny story. I take him almost every Saturday of his entire life to this one restaurant that he loves so much, called Proud Bird. It's across the street from LAX. Anyone who's in Los Angeles, it's just a treasure, this restaurant. And the planes land right over the restaurant. And that airplanes
He
are
loves
his
it.
thing.
Yeah.
So, especially on Sunday, we were there one Sunday morning, especially on Sunday mornings, there's a big after church crowd. It's almost exclusively African American. And so I was sitting at one end of the porch, just, like eating or reading or whatever. He was like on the other end of the porch, and he turned around and yelled across the entire porch. He was like, "Mom!" Sort of like every head turned.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Is my little brother gonna be brown too?" And like every single head in the place turned to me, and I was just like, "Yes, honey." Yes.
I love it so much. So
I felt like he was like, "I need a witness."
Everybody listen. Yep. Hey guys, before we get back to the show with Jillian, I wanted to remind you that a huge way that you can help the Happy Hour podcast is to do all of your Amazon shopping through my affiliate link, jamieivey.com/Amazon. Amazon is a great place to find anything you're looking for a great price. We're talking stuff like batteries or designer shoes, even a magical unicorn mask, last minute Halloween gifts. Whatever you buy, when you buy through the link that I just gave you, I get a small percentage of that sale, and it helps to go towards the cost and expense of doing this podcast that I love doing for you guys. So remember, next time you need anything, go to jamieivey.com/Amazon. It's a win-win because you help out the Happy Hour while you also get that magical unicorn mask that you've had your eye on for a while. So go ahead. You deserve it. Get it. Okay, back to the show with Jillian. So tell me this, Jillian. What led y'all to adopt from the foster system and not back to Ethiopia?
Well, it's almost impossible to adopt from Ethiopia right now, which is really tragic.
It is, yeah.
Because there was a lot of corruption, and that absolutely 100% needs vigilance and reform and transparency. And I'm not minimizing that, but to shut down the entire adoption system seems so sad because there's so many orphans in Ethiopia. I think it maybe is the highest concentration in the world, or certainly was. I don't know. There might be some other. I mean, there are some other things going on in the world now that would affect those numbers, but. So it's really sad, and we continue to do work in Ethiopia. We continue to do work with Help One Now. You know the Help One Now people.
I do, and you went on that trip with our mutual friends Jen Hatmaker and Kristen Howerton, right?
Yes, that was and Corey Robertson.
Yes,
and that was one of the best things I've ever done. Just amazing.
Was that your first time back after bringing Taylor home? Okay, and what was that like?
Oh. It was like I didn't know how I was excited to go back. I have always felt this yearning in my heart for Ethiopia since we left, which totally surprised me. It wasn't like somewhere I felt really connected to before that or anything. But I mean, my husband and I often talk about this. We're sort of like, we feel Ethiopian in some sense, like we have this intense spiritual connection to that country now. And so I was feeling this yearning to go back, and then the opportunity came for me to go on this trip with Help One Now to help raise money and raise visibility for the wonderful work that they're doing there. And I went, and of course it's like hard traveling that I hadn't done in a while. Traveling in developing countries is different.
Yeah.
It's very different than going to Orlando,
Right.
And, it's like different food and different bacteria that you're dealing with and different kind of, standards of hot water or not, or and of course there's a tremendous amount of poverty, and that's very hard to look at sometimes. But I was just so glad to be back there. I felt Yeah, I was visiting somewhere that is, if not home for me, a home,
Yeah.
a home of mine in the world. I just love that country. I can't wait to go back. I think I'm going to go back again in the spring.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I just went to my first time anywhere in Africa this spring, and it was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, right. What was the organization you went with?
With Soul Hope,
Right.
yeah, in Uganda, and it was
I love
just
your
beautiful.
photographs.
Yeah, it was so wonderful.
Yeah.
So everything you ever wanted. So when I recommend your books to people, I always say to start with Some Girls because I
Hmm.
feel like like these books they of course it's your life, but they overlap a lot in ways that you
Hmm.
wouldn't imagine.
Right. I know it's true.
It's one's about your
There
life
are
in a harem.
overlapping themes.
Yes, and one is about your journey to your son, and they overlap so much. So I always recommend people start with the first one and then read this book. And the book, Everything You Ever Wanted, obviously really resonates with parents through adoption, but it's so much more than that. It you did such a fabulous job of not just making it where like, oh, adoptive parents get that because it was more than that.
Yeah, I think so. And that was my intention. I really wanted to reach beyond just our little niche community, which I love. But I think it's so often that it stories that have to do with adoption, just people for whom that's not like a direct part of their family, just like go all blank in the eyeballs. They're just like, oh, well, oh, good for you.
Right, right.
Oh, you guys are great.
Yep.
And
You're
then
such a
they
great
really,
person.
you're
Yeah.
a great person, but then they just have zero interest. It's like,
Yeah.
"Mwah."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's like everything you say after the word adoption sounds like the teacher from
Wah wah.
Peanuts.
Yeah. Yep.
Wah, 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 wah. Um, and I wanted to, I wanted to make more of a bridge than that, and I wanted to discuss the universality of the themes that adoption brings up in our lives. Where do we belong, and where do we find our families in this world, and what effect does trauma and separation have on the developing brain? Now, certainly adoptive families deal with trauma and loss, but we don't own trauma and loss.
Right.
There's plenty of that. I have a lot of friends who have read the book and said, I really feel like my kid has a lot of these symptoms of trauma, but he wasn't traumatized. And I'll start asking questions, and I'll be like, well, what was the birth like?
Yep.
And how long was he in the hospital for? And were there any significant medical problems in the first couple of years of his life?
And what was your life during the 9 months? I mean, like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like what kind of stress levels were going on in utero, and often there's like, oh, well, he was born premature, and he had, like horrible stomach pain and I'm like, that is so traumatic.
Yeah.
That is a world that feels unsafe. Like if you're a baby and your experience of the world is that you're just like in pain that no one can help all the time,
Yeah.
then that's a pretty
It's
good
traumatic.
reason to feel unsafe.
Right.
So there are all of these applications, and all of these ways that I believe that these discussions are relevant
Yeah.
to so many people. And they're like, we have so many blended and mixed families now of all different kinds. Like the traditional nuclear family. I mean, how many years before that is in the minority?
Right.
So, I think that it's affecting all of us.
Yeah. Another one of the themes that I really like in your book, because I think motherhood is something that kind of sneaks up on people, and you have this idea of what you think it's going to be like, and then it is completely shattered. And I think that's not adoption specific. I mean, I think that is motherhood in general.
Yeah.
I mean, it was for me, my first child. I mean, I was young and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was really shocked by my international adoptions. And you wrote this in your book. I'm going to read this real quick because you said this. You said, nothing I've encountered in my life has hurled me into darkness as fiercely as this rejection by my son. Not Jennifer's death, which is a friend you talk about in this book. Not Jennifer's death, not stripping, not drugs, not being disowned, not depression, nothing. Even when I'm able to remain grounded and patient and not take it personally all day long, it's a rare day, but it does happen. Comes bedtime, I still find myself in tears, thinking that in a million years, I never imagined being a mother would feel like this. And I remember reading that and I thought, so many people are going to say, I feel that way sometimes. Me too. Motherhood just comes at you, and it's not always what we think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Especially if you tend to be a controlling person.
Yeah.
You know, or somebody like me, somebody who thinks that, you know, like I can kind of direct and set dress and write this story and you all just show up.
Right. Yep.
You'll just show up, put this hat on,
Play the
stand
part
over there and say this, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's what this looks like.
Yep. And I think that was a lot of my problem too, is that I had already had 2 children who were quote unquote normal, typical, weren't dealing with these issues. And then 2 more kids show up and I'm just like, what the heck happened? Because this is not how I've been a mom before. And now this is so different and so hard.
Right. Right. And, you know, and it's this constant process of being able to like redefine ourselves and our relationships with love and compassion for ourselves, for our children, you know, and to just release our expectations around this stuff, because the expectations are the killer thing. And I look at my own relationship with my parents, and actually now we're getting along really well.
Great.
Which is super nice.
So if you read the book, you'll see that after you release some girls, it was a little...
we had a little rift because my parents were very embarrassed and they were very hurt.
Did they know the story?
They knew the story.
They're just like, why the heck would you tell everybody else?
Why on earth would you air your dirty laundry? And I was just like, I'm a writer. I write about my life. This is what this is my gift. This is what I do.
Don't you love it, Mom? Yeah.
And now they understand that. But then they did not.
Yeah.
And they just, you know, that they just thought it was really shameful what I did, and it was really sad. But it wasn't the first time. That didn't happen after like a lifetime of having no problems with my parents. That happened after, you know, a lifetime of struggle, particularly with my dad. And when I look back on it, I think, oh, it's just, it seems so sad, all the missed opportunities we had to connect. And so much of it was based on expectations on everyone's part. Like, my father had expectations what his children were supposed to be like. And I did my best to live up to those expectations for a long time, until I realized that I just wasn't that kid. I wasn't the kid that he wanted. And the minute I stopped looking exactly like the kid that he wanted, it just like blew his mind. There was just, you know, he could not, he was just so furious that dream had been lost, that, you know, it was like almost irreparable, the damage that was done. But yeah, I mean, we're all older now, so we're like, nothing's irreparable. I'm too tired to fight you anymore.
Right.
But it's so sad, and I don't want to fall prey to the same thing. I mean, I'm certain I'm falling prey to a million other ways I'm messing up my kid, but
that's what I always say. I said everyone needs counseling, and I'm just like, it's gonna happen. I mean, you know, I'm doing the best that I can as a mom, you know, and here we go.
Yeah, and we say we're sorry, and it's different parenting time. You know, it's a different generation. Like the other night, Scott and I were sitting there looking at each other, like, because lately Taraku has developed such a mouth, like
he'll like talk back to you.
Oh, and he's hilarious. Like, he is very, very funny and sharp. And just like sass. The sass is completely unacceptable. And so we're trying to talk about how we're going to address this. And I'm like, how did this happen? Like, where did this mouth come from? And Scott was like, I have news for you. We gave it to him. Like we have raised him to think and to question and to have an opinion.
Right.
And, and he is just, and he just does that with real, with some real flair.
Exactly. You're like, that's real funny what you said, but you can't do that. I know it's funny.
It's like funny but horrifying, and
Right.
when you're trying not to laugh, and then you're also thinking like, I have raised a monster,
What have I
and
created?
oh my gosh.
So are you working on any other writings right now?
I am. I'm doing some. I'm doing some work, but I'm keeping it very. I mean, I'm still doing my blog as always. Not maybe as often as I was for a while. And I'm doing a few small things, like I'm calling them manageable meals.
Okay.
Working on a short TV pilot, or like doing short things,
Ah.
because as we're preparing for this
Yeah.
next adoption, which I think will happen very quickly, that's really my main
You're
focus
wanting to be able to
right now.
pull back and focus on your family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just, I feel really strongly, especially adopting like 3 to 5 year old, that particularly if they don't have to be in school yet, if they're not yet 5,
Right.
that I just want to just want to do all that good attachment
Yeah,
stuff.
for sure.
I'm like, no, that kid won't be out of my
Yep.
sight
We know.
for months.
Yep.
Like won't be out of the same room with me
Yeah.
for months,
Yeah.
until we all start to smooth that transition
Yeah.
out. So,
Which a lot of people don't understand that. I told someone one time after Amos came home, he was 4.5, and they're
mhm,
like, it's so weird how you're so like, you won't let us like give him food or anything. And I'm
right,
like, listen, if you came to the house and gave him a better offer, he would leave. Like, he
right,
does not
right,
understand that what
exactly,
family is. And so
right.
that's what we have to teach them.
Exactly, and yeah, and it's a very foreign thing to
It
people,
is.
but you have to do a lot of thinking through it,
Mm-hmm.
like in order to understand why that's
Yeah.
necessary. Like think it through to what this child's life has been like,
Yeah.
and what sort of lessons that life
Has
has
taught them.
taught that child,
And they don't even
you know,
know it. Yeah.
and they don't even know it.
Yep.
So, and you got to dial that all back,
Mm-hmm.
dial that whole clock back, and create a whole new set
Yep.
of lessons, and
Mm-hmm.
have space that he believes is safe
Yeah. Feel
and
safe. Yeah.
able to trust you. It's not something that happens immediately. I mean, I think that is the danger a little bit of like the rainbows and unicorns adoption
Yep.
narrative. Like,
Yep.
I just saw them and we fell in love,
Uh-huh.
and
I'm
they're
gonna
the heart of
save
the
him
world.
from everything. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were attached. It was love at first sight from the minute. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, that's a very nice story. I'm sure that was true for you.
It's not mainly true. Yeah. Yeah. It just doesn't
But
feel that way. Yeah. It's not.
it takes some work.
It does. It does. And I think that's why it's also another like this motherhood is different than I thought because you
Mhm.
don't think that you have to like work to love someone or work to like someone. You think,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a mom. I should love this kid every minute of every day. And then you have a kid that like pees on you and tells you that he hates you. And you start to
Right.
think, wait, what are these feelings I'm feeling? These are not supposed to be what a mom feels.
Oh God.
And it's
I
just a,
remember when it was like, I would sometimes have to put my hand over my own mouth.
so you didn't say what you
So
were
I
thinking?
didn't say like, wait, I don't like you
I
either.
know. Yep. Oh, I mean, Amos, in his darkest moments when he first came home, he used to say, I don't want to live here. I want to go back to Haiti. And my thought was sometimes irrational, like, well, maybe you should, like
Yeah.
I didn't really think that. And I would have never said that. But you get
Right.
these thoughts where you're like, well, this isn't easy for me either,
Yeah. I mean, Tarek will still do it. We were looking through his life book the other day. We have a picture of his birth mother in his life book, and he will push and push at me, and although this stuff, actually, the stuff that's really obvious what's going on doesn't bother me, and I feel like I have tools to address it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I was adopted. is another thing. I don't know if we mentioned that yet, but
Right.
I was also adopted. So like, I think I have a much better understanding of these kind of issues. And so, he was like looking at the picture and he was like, oh, there's my mommy. There's my mommy. And then he kept like putting his hand over my face in the picture. And I just didn't, I was like, oh, I was like, do you want to write her a letter? And, just we talked about her and how much she loved him and loves him and how brave she is and all this stuff. And then, and then we wind up moving on. He never actually wants to write the letter. That would be too much work.
Right. Yeah.
But he, so we went on and read more of the book, and then later I was, I went in this. Mothers will know. Well, this will resonate with mothers. Like, I went to pee, and he just wouldn't even let me be alone to pee. He was he came right into the bathroom with me, and I was like, do you need something, honey? What's going on? And he was just I'm like, he was trying to make something up, and then he was like, I love you, mom, I love you, mom, and I was like, oh, he feels terrible right now, and he's scared, and so whatever, and then and then I just shower him with love and speeches, and we may start making jokes, and it's so normal. It seems so natural and makes so much sense that he would test and push and see, can he push me away? Can he hurt me to the point that I, don't want to be his mother anymore? Right. All that is completely logical.
Yeah. And I even think that's hard. I think I have felt the tension of even explaining what you just said to people who don't walk through this, who they've, maybe their children have come to them all naturally and they don't have trauma. Right. For me to understand that the reason that he does this, especially early on a lot, is that he's just trying to see, are we going to give up on him? Are we going to be like, you know what, this is too much, I'm sending you back to Haiti, we made a mistake. And it's not that he wants that, but he just always needs to make sure, how much can I do before this whole thing is a shamble,
Absolutely. It's how far can I push you? Can I push so hard on you, as hard as I can, and you still won't give up on me?
Yeah.
Because then maybe I can trust you.
Exactly. And I remember early on when Amos, he really tried to hurt me with his words and I don't love you, you're not my mom, I want to go back to Haiti. And I would just look at him or he would say why don't you just send me back? And I would look at him and I'd be like, because I can't. I love you so much and I'm your mom and God put us together and God thinks that we're best for each other. And so if you don't think I'm a good mom, then you can tell him, but we'd be a good team, And so I would just always go back well, I can't even do that because I love you so much. And a mother doesn't do that to her son. And he would always just kind of look at me okay, all right, and then we played that dance so many times those first 2 years. It was
How old is Amos now?
He's 10.
Woo, 10.
10, a big kid, almost home 6 years. I mean, he's a good kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great kid.
Yeah.
Okay, Jillian, tell me 3 things that you're loving right now in your life.
3 things I'm loving right now. I love a cookbook right now. I'm totally obsessed with this cookbook. It's called Jerusalem.
Oh.
And it is all different kinds of food from all traditions from the Holy Land.
What does the cover look like? Because I think I have this on my kitchen table right now.
It's like a white it's almost padded book. And it says Jerusalem, and then there's a picture of a dish on the cover, I think, that has an egg on it.
Oh my gosh, I have this exact cookbook.
Oh, it's so good.
We have friends that just recently moved to Israel. And so they gave us a gift when they moved. That's how nice they are.
That's nice.
Yeah, okay, so you're loving this cookbook.
I love that cookbook. The chicken with the cardamom.
Okay, I'm writing this down so Aaron can make it for me.
Is so great.
Okay.
And easy once you do it a couple times. One of those things the first time you do it seems a little.
Yeah.
You gotta puzzle it through a little bit, And then after that, it's super easy, and it's just like great for a dinner party. It looks very impressive, and it's very easy to do. And I love one dish cooking. And I love this lipstick that I have been wearing every single day for 2 months called Syrup.
Okay. Is that the
From
brand?
MAC.
Oh, from MAC. Okay.
No, that's the name of the color. I'm totally crazy about that lipstick. What was my third thing? I had a good third thing. Oh, I really am liking the book No Drama Discipline
Okay.
by Dr. Tina Bryson. I don't read a whole lot of parenting books anymore, honestly, because like I got so burned out on parenting books. Like I read them all,
And then you would like put that into practice and then go to the next thing. Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'd really rather read for pleasure.
So no drama discipline.
No Drama Discipline. It is quite brilliant, and she really combines great. She has a great combination of neuroscience and just super compassionate parenting. That's cool.
I love that.
And so those are my three favorite things right now.
I have to ask you this because you Shriners dress up for Halloween.
We sure do.
What are y'all doing this year?
We don't know. I am beside myself. We've been going back and forth. The problem is when these kids start having opinions.
That's right. You can't just dress them.
It sucks.
So what is Taraku thinking? Or does he have any like solid opinions yet?
He's starting. Well, he was really into mythology, so that I was really excited about. We do some.
We can do a lot with that,
right? And now I think he's going to superheroes, which I'm always just like,
yeah.
Like, must we?
Right?
Must we put another Captain America out there? But
okay. Well, we'll all just have to wait and see what you guys do.
You're gonna have to wait and see. This is still in flux.
Okay. I can't wait. And don't you write about a Halloween party in your book?
Yes,
okay.
I do write about a Halloween party in the book. We used to have Halloween parties every year that were amazing. Mm-hmm. They were great because we lived in this crazy Halloween neighborhood, and we're not doing them because we moved.
Well, good.
And now we live on like this crazy steep hill, and no one trick-or-treats around here. So
you have to go someplace else.
We have to go somewhere else. We actually go to our old neighborhood.
Which is great.
Which is great, and we don't do our Halloween parties every year, which honestly is sort of a relief. Like, we did them for so long.
We can let it go.
Like, we can let that one go.
Done with that, yeah. Okay, well, we will be watching to see what you guys do, because that's always fun. Jillian, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This has been a joy. I feel like we could have just chatted forever, and so
I know.
I want everyone to go buy your books.
I do too.
Yes, and I talk about books a lot on my podcast, and I recommend a lot of books, and I cannot any more highly recommend these two books. So love them so much. So everyone go get Some Girls and Everything You Ever Wanted. And you have another book. I feel awful because I never mention it because I haven't read it.
Oh, well, it's called Pretty, and it is a novel.
It's a novel. That's what I thought. Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. So usually when I'm talking about my memoirs, it doesn't come up as much because it's just kind of a different category. But
everyone go buy that too. But I have not read it, so
I'll send you some books.
Okay, Jillian, thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jamie.
Guys, didn't you love Jillian? She is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. The depth and scope of that conversation is unlike any that I've had in a long time. Remember, everything we chatted about will be up on my website, jamieivey.com, and I'd love to hear from you. Find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Jamie_Ivey. My Instagram is Jamie Ivey. I'm over on Facebook as well. Share with me something that you loved from this episode. Go find Jillian on Twitter and let her know something you loved as well. Her Twitter is @Jillian Lauren. I also want to say thank you to Austin Stone Worship for sponsoring this episode. They just released a new album, This Glorious Grace. You can find it anywhere you buy music. Head on over to iTunes. I promise you're going to love it. And if you want a sneak peek of it, go ahead and head back and listen to a previous episode with Jaleesa McCreary where we talk all about it. And I play a song at the end for free, so there's that. Next week, my guest is my friend Monica Swanson, who's a mama living in Hawaii raising surfer boys. I mean, how much cooler does it get than that? Guys, enjoy your week. Share the show with a girlfriend and have a happy hour with a friend. See you next week, guys.